final boss. We are getting some editing done today, which we haven't done in a long time. So get excited. Get excited. I'm pretty excited. I haven't done editing in a while, and I miss it, and I miss it very much. So let's get cracking here. Let's start with Resonance. So I have two things to edit today. Hopefully we'll get to them both. But yeah, Resonance is a screenplay, and it's about a game that plays you. Apparently, it's as much as I know about it, and I know that the over black disembodied voice is whispered voice. So the TV format, we're looking for some pretty tight structure, right? Like you're looking for a hook. Like generally you look at TV scripts, they'll have pretty clear act delineations and delineations on when the hook and stuff is. So let's see, just from like page 1, I think it's called like the teaser. Like this intro section in TV is called the teaser. Let me make sure this is fitting correctly. Whoop. Be sure to some TV writers will note, teaser, act 1, Yeah, so like the beats and the timing in television is so important that a lot of writers will include it. I also don't really get the resume intro. The resonance intro. Get the intro dialogue line. Just start with, consider clarifying or starting with, with the scene. And have the, yeah, because you talk about the whispering there, so essentially you're kind of, wants me to save it. I can save it, sure. Yeah, I feel like in this situation, you're gonna run into some challenges, right? Like, so you already have verbal doubling, right? Like, we're explaining the same thing twice. We're explaining that there's disembodied whispers once. We're explaining it again. So like a lot of this like fading in from black and stuff like that, like those types of like edgy intros are really not necessary at the screenplay level. It looks like just another day at the office, except for the ominous whispers resonating all around the room. It's a little bit of a funny grammar there. But Leon 38 seems to be the only one hearing them. Alarm returns to another CIA man. So again, this is probably not a very strong character intro, right? So like your character intro, you're already showing me that he is hearing something that no one else is hearing, right? And then the partner saying, what? That's already shown, right? So that moment when we're introducing Leon, who I'm imagining is one of your main characters, he's the only one named, right? Like everyone else is CIA man. Yeah, here's Leon. So Leon's an important character. So give us some description. Like, what does he wear? What does he look like? Use the Leon intro to show us his character and not explain the situation you already demo. What does he wear? What does he look like? You know, what type of person does he seem to be? You know, a nerd, a scientist? You know, I don't know. That's a silly example, like an agent. You know, like is he like an agent? You know, I don't know. And that's actually kind of the problem, right? It's like I'm reading Leon. You've just introduced his character, and I really don't know much about him except that he's 38 and he hears voices. And he works at the CIA. So, again, like add that color about who he is in this section, and save yourself, you know, a little bit of you know, restating. Verbal doubling. It's a big risk in writers. Terror crosses Leon's face, and we cut to black. So a lot of cuts like that. Single row every time I close my eyes. All I see is people. Yeah, that line feels a little funky as then gunfire slashes into the darkness. Okay. A shadow launches itself in the air, defying physics as the cacophony of empty magazines chase it. Security guards lift the guns, fire flowers blasting from the death machines. It's a little overwritten. So again, like remember, leave like the epic action scenes to the choreographers to these types of things. In a screenplay, your main goal is give us the story, give us something at the story and the narrative level to hook onto. You know, the action you can kind of describe it, but you don't have to get into too much detail. You know, just give us the beats of the action so we can start getting to the characters, right? Because we're running into this issue of, you know, we have action, but we don't have characters that we care about yet. So the action falls a little flat, or it's just, you know, stick figures shooting each other in a video game. You know, it's sort of like when you're in a video game and you see like two barbarian people fighting, and you know, like usually in the video game you go and like mow them all down or whatever. But you don't really care, right? Like you know, they might have like a really in-depth conflict. But unless the game is telling you that, well, this guy, you know, stole Helen of Troy from this guy, and of course they're fighting because this king was really prideful, and you know, then I care about why. Whoa, like why are they fighting this? That seems kind of pointless because some guy stole some other guy's girl. You know, like that's like the whole point of like you know you know like so much of it is like adding some of that moral layering to it. But if we don't really have characters, we can't get there. So the action is until you have a character that we care about in the action will never resonate as well as it can potentially. So something to keep in mind. We don't over describe your action. Your action. And beware purple prose. You know, we're trying, you know, early on. Yeah, early on, your goal is to just be as efficient as possible at this point. There we go. All right, a hurricane kick sends one of the guards flying, smashing the car. Shadow is human, a woman. Impossibly fast, she tackles the last guard as he empties his gun, muzzle flash strobing his face. Terrified, it's like he's seeing gloom and stillness swallow them. Heels crackling break the silence. Heels clacking, like high heels? Okay, so like that might need to be a little clearer, but I'm just guessing it's like she's like very like you know like a fancy demon chick or something. Dim, no lights on, handshaking, standing 10 feet away. CIA man 2 points is 45. So like again, like you know, so like a really good example of this, I think, is well, we'll see what you do before I talk about how other TV shows do this. Dim, no lines, handshaking, standing 10 feet away. Clackling stops. The door turns. CIA man 2 fires, enraged. Bullet holes pop out of the door until click, empty. He backs away as if not believing it. The door creaks open and he's met by a fistful of black metal. The woman, face obscured, gun in hand. CIA man 2 hurries to reload. So wait, is she like a normal human? The shadow. Okay. Defying physics. So this makes me feel like she's some sort of superhuman thing. Leo watches her approach, but the legs move past him. At the far end, the terrified CA man, when peeks around Leo, gestures for him to move. The legs stop by CA man 3, almost catatonic. I mean, these are CIA people. I don't know why they're like so terrified. Like, she seems to be kind of magical, but I don't know like why she's inspiring such like, you know, fear. Whew. Hopefully muted there so y'all didn't have to hear the Omega sneeze. Okay. Oops. Let's see here. Okay. Sorry, I had to write down a quick reminder because I forget things all the time. I forget what I was saying here. Oh yes. I don't why CIA agents are cowering in fear. Yeah, like yes, this lady seems a little magical, but these are trained professionals against one person. Yeah. So unless like you gotta clarify whether hey these are actually like the desk guys. These are like the nerd CIA agents. That's fine. We just need to get that information. Shit. Yeah, I don't know why they're so terrified of this lady. Like she's sort of like showing up as like the monster. Okay, CIA man 4 steps back, shaking his head. I think I do have the Breaking Bad. Let me just see. I'm gonna see if I have it in here somewhere. I think I have it. I can give it as an example. Screenplays, Breaking Bad. Oh yeah, I do. Yeah, yeah. So then, yeah. So this is a good example, right? So he's marking Vince Gillian is saying this is the teaser, like so they are marking where we're at in the screenplay. But like, look at how unique this is, right? Oh, my stuff is dying here. I hope people aren't chatting because my chat just died. Oh, I have to find pictures of crosswalks. Most things I hate. Visual captures with like these like crappy pixelated images. Find pictures of crosswalks. Find pictures of buses and turtles. Anyways, sorry, I digress. Let me close that. But yeah, so like just seeing a like one of these professional screenplays is a really good um like it's just such a crazy first scene. Like, he takes his like camcorder out, the man in his underpants, like, like Walter White in his underpants. This I don't think was in the show, but he's like, my name is Walter White. I'm a sound mind. I'm speaking out of my family. Skylar, you are the love of my life. I hope you are. I have you all three in my heart. And then and he stands in the place, not finishing, off to shoot the first cop he sees. And then we jump into Act 1. And, like, so, like, the teaser, I mean, you kind of have that teaser vibe, and you're at about 3 pages, but it doesn't have that unique ring, right? Like, some sort of monster gobbling up a CIA headquarters is a cool thing, but you really want to look for what makes this special. What makes this different than all the monsters gobbling up some sort of government organization? That's such a it's a very, very heavily used intro, so you really want to think about, how do I mix this up? How do I make the craziest? I mean, Breaking Bad has the number one craziest. Like, I've never seen an intro like that before. Like, this guy, like, busting out of a smoking Winnebago, like, with a gun, and, like, losing his, like, like, it's crazy. So again, it's just it's good to read like screenplays that have been professionally done before, because they can be so helpful. I think I have this in. No, I don't. Do I have it in here? Do I have it in the Final Boss library? I don't think so. I should put it in there. Oh, I do. Okay, woof, there we go. Go me. I thought ahead for once in my life. Okay, yeah. So then we got to the CIA man, like crap, and then he dies. CIA man steps forward, shaking his head in disbelief. Electricity crackles. No, this is not happening. Final shots, running footsteps. No, SWAT team's here. Is anybody? Storms in, M5 carbines way scanning. Is anybody here? I'm here. Leon jumps with his hand up, laser sights pointed at his face. Thunder cracks several miles away. As every night, suddenly the lasers brighten. As every light. Okay, so again, like there's some minor grammar things you can clean up. So if I was really, this is a demonstration edit, this is a free edit. If I was really going on, so like for example, every light goes out. So we have like the lights glaring and then suddenly going out. And so this should be comma and for one. And the SWAT team collapses. You don't need to the floor, because that's implied, right? You're collapsing to the floor. I'll just do this here, like one grammar edit as an example. There you go. Welcome, Dirty Dexter. How's it going? Are you a writer, storyteller, all of the above? Let me know. All right. So every light goes out of the SWAT team class. So this should be room goes dark. Simple as that. Like, kind of. I've been hobby writing a story for 5 years. That's wonderful. I think it's always great to hear of folks writing, and I think hobby writing is such a impactful thing. I very often find that many writers think there's some sort of dichotomy between publishing or nothing. And I've seen like some of my parents' friends, write these really great family histories, or kind of make a narrative out of something they experienced or whatever, and just shared them with family and friends, and it brought joy. to those people. So I think, yeah, that's awesome. I think it's a noble craft, and it's an important thing to do, no matter what your goal is. If it's just a hobby, if you want to publish, doesn't matter. It's awesome to see more writers out there. Okay. A final shot echoes by running footsteps make injury. What? Okay. So then so they all came in. They got zapped. Darkness is lit by sparks. The fluorescence person is playing. Fire illuminates the bullpen like a Roman temple. Roman temples have fire in them? I feel like the over imagery is getting a little bit distracting. Is this page 2 or is this page 3? This is page 3, sorry. I miswrote this. The metaphors, the similes actually, a little much. Remember, those are hard to communicate over camera. Remember, this is a dramatic form. I spelled similes wrong, but it's hard to spell. Are you reviewing your own? I'm reviewing someone else's. So every once in a while on Final Boss, viewers will submit their stories and projects and stuff, and then I will edit them. Just a few pages just to help support the writing community, because I think just as important as it is to write and to be creative, I think it's really, really valuable to hopefully just help build up the community. I also, work as an editor and help folks out with that as well. So it's a good way to just let people see, what kind of editing I do. This is obviously a very distilled and sped up version because it's more for instruction of the viewers. But still helps the writers, I believe. So yeah, I mean, my recommendation for this writer, honestly, is in screenplays, just cut your similes. Cut the similes down. I think like when it's in a character description, it's okay. But like, I don't know, which Bond girl, like if you're going to use a simile, be really, really precise and specific. Yeah. Like what aspects? That's a bad example, but whatever. I'll let you. Rook of Books, JZ, welcome. Rock of Books. Why did I say Rook? And Shadow Malachi, thank you for the follow. And Alexis, hello. How's it going? Good to see you all. Welcome. Well, this is a lot of fun. I haven't done an edit in a while, probably too long, so I'm excited to share this with you, with all y'all. I think it's a very fun process to take a look at some of it. So this is going to be drama, and then we're jumping into a prose story next. So hopefully, yeah, we'll get some stuff done here, I think. Please no, I swear. Hank grabs him by the hair and lifts him off the floor. His bloody face for the first time. She's very pretty. I know where it is. I know where the list is hidden, and I can help you take it. We'll take it. We'll take it, okay? Well, okay. You're gonna need me. Do you know who I am? Suddenly hurls him into the flames. Leon! Okay, so like all the characters have died so far, so it's hard to and so we're getting pretty far, right? So if we look at Breaking Bad, at page 4 the teaser is over. Get 3 minutes and the teaser is done, right? And it doesn't even get all the way to the end of page 3. But like, look at how spare this writing is, Deep blue sky overhead, fat, scuddy clouds. Below them, black and white cows graze the rolling hills. This could be one of those California It's the Cheese commercials. Except those commercials don't normally focus on cow shit. We do. Tilt down to a fat round patty, drying an olive wrapped in the sun. Flies buzz. So like, there's a lot. There is some character in the writing, but it's very, very economical, and it's directing your eyes not by selling you, Shadow, thank you, Shadow Malachi, thank you for the raid, and welcome everybody, welcome. So just how lean and very, very precise this writing is, because we're immediately on to like an interesting moment, right? The driver's knuckles cling white to the wheel. He's got the pedal flat, scared, breathing fast. His eyes bug wide behind the faceplates of his gas masks. Oh, by the way, he's wearing a gas mask. That and white jockey underpants, nothing else. Buckled in the car seat behind him lolls a closed passenger, wearing his gas mask. Blood streaks down his ear, blotting his t-shirt. He's passed out. Behind the interior is a wreck. Beakers and buckets of lab flasks and some ad hoc chemical lab. Yeah, like so. 2 dead bodies. Yeah, so like immediately, like we're like, what is going on? Just amazing writing. Anyways, but thinking about that pacing, like, okay, we're on number 4 now. We need to start. We're out of the teaser, and we can mark that and say Act 1, because essentially this is what's happening. A young woman, a barmaid. This is Kai, 19. Okay, so first, like, as we kind of exit the teaser, which I pretty much think you're pacing around that, though I think you should denote that, which I mentioned already. This end is okay, but I feel like the mystery is so unclear. It's not enough for me to hook onto yet. Like a list of what? And all the characters we know die. Like, so for example, like when we get to... Oh yeah, that's a fun one. The script description has the benefit of you seeing the visual created from it. Yes, very, very focused on visuals. That's absolutely right, Dirty Dexter. And the reason is, this is drama, right? This is a visual medium. And so the more we can steer away from metaphor into concrete visual language that we can picture and smell and viscerally taste, that viscerality needs to come across on the page. It needs to be experienced through my senses, right? Sensory. Very, very critical. And we have some of that, but, I think things like the metaphors like really should only be in support of the visuals, right? So anyways, I think this, all the characters we know die. When that happens, seeing that done well, for example, or okay, is in Stranger Things, the horror show, where like they start with the scientist and he's running and like looking back at the lab. But part of it is like, one, Stranger Things is playing off of cliches. They want nostalgia. They want cliches, so they are factoring in that they want this to feel like a cliched setup, right? So they're doing that intentionally, for one. And then for two, they show us the problem, right? They're not vague about the problem. I know this shadow girl, she's kind of looking for something. That's cool, but in Stranger Things, we read the script Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. That's a really, really great idea. And seeing how writers, if they are going to use cliche, yeah, there's a way to do it ironically, or to kind of set it up, or to twist it in a way that's unique and interesting. And that's something that we should all be looking out for. Where if we're ever using familiar or similar imagery, keep your head on your shoulders. Think about, okay, I've seen this setup before. I've seen the setup of somebody raiding an office looking for something, right? And somebody with magical powers or very, very extreme strength. What's the way I want to turn that or twist that to make it unique, to make it feel a little extra special? I actually think you did an okay job with the list. I know where the list is. Great, but I need more, I think. And I think that's the thing. I think the list is a good start, but we need a little bit more to go on. So, like, for example, in Stranger Things, the scientist looks up and you hear this guttural creature like growling, and immediately we know that there is a monster on the loose, right? And that's all we have to know, right? Like, it's some sort of experiment gone wrong, monster on the loose. It's like simple of a horror story as we can get. But they're very clear about that, right? Like, it's a government, some sort of government thing went wrong. and the monster got out, and it's going to rampage through town, and then they immediately invest in making us care about all the people in town, or else we won't care if they get killed by a monster. All right, enough about that. But yeah, I think you get what I think you get what I mean. I hope. A young woman, a barmaid. This is Kai, 19. Kai stares blankly in the crowd, fixed. People in costumes. It's Halloween. She's not taking her eyes off something, not off something, just no, off someone, just facing us. Creepy. Are you listening? Kai snaps back to reality. No more whispers. Only the crowd babble. Customers talking to her. Yeah, pina colada coming up. So I kind of like this voice thing that like these people are starting to hear voices. I like the idea of like random people starting to hear voices. You know, this definitely reminds me of Stranger Things. But remember to research how they are using these tropes and repurposing with new meaning. I don't know if I spelled repurposing right. I probably didn't. Purposing is hard. No, that's right. Just needed a hyphen, I guess. Also, I see some new folks hanging around chat. Welcome, welcome. Feel free to introduce yourself. Tell us about what you're writing or working on, or you name it. Always love to hear what kind of shenanigans everybody's getting up to. All right. When shows it open with violence, they often pan the camera to the dying person muttering something or object left both the viewer have some sort of idea where it's going and raising specific questions. Yeah, that's a really, really great point, Dirty. And that's good. Keep giving your feedback in chat because I send this video to the writer and hopefully, and everybody's point of view, the more point of views we can give to a writer, the better. So that's great. All right. Young word bomber. This is Kai, 19. Kai stares blankly in the crowd, fixed. Monsters, aliens, people in costumes. It's Halloween. She's not taking her eyes off someone. No, someone. Okay. Just facing us. Creepy. So I see this someone staring at her, but how is the voice off screen? Is it the person staring at her? Yeah, like the ghost person is interesting. It's not clear exactly what's happening. You know, it's not immediately clear exactly what's happening. I'm gonna actually use P4. What's transpiring between the like ghost person and the voice. Is the voice coming from the creepy person? Also, like, describe creepy, right? Like, so be concrete. Like, is there like blood coming out of his eyes? Like, what is creepy? Creepy. This is an abstract. Show us through concrete visuals what makes this person creepy. He's wearing an old coat. His eyes are hidden, but there's some black tar leaking out from where his eye sockets. That's creepy. And then also, like, why isn't Kai reacting to this this creep eyeballing her? Yeah, it's like, she's a waitress. People kind of being weird to waitresses is unfortunately not uncommon. Like, some people are just not always kind to waitresses, or they're just kind of, they behave strangely. So I would expect she would have a reaction, but she kind of just blows it off, and she's like, I guess there's just some creep staring at me, whatever. Trip the Wolf, hello, hello. Yeah, in that case, the note you have for P2 to add some experience-based training helps greatly in working through fear. Doesn't make fear non-existent. They're able to maintain who they are and awareness of what they're doing. Oh, thank you so much, Coffee Quills, for the 200 bits and filling up the tip jar. Welcome, welcome. Good to see ya. Hope all is going well. Having some fun doing an edit for some other writers. So this is kind of the fun. One of this is how Final Boss editing started. Was other people would submit their work, and I would edit it for them and help them kind of thank goodness I've had the opportunity to do a lot of studying of writing over the years. So it's always great to kind of pay it forward and help some other writers out. So yeah, it's always a blast. I love seeing just people's creativity is amazing. Okay, but thank you again. Someone with that kind of training gets scared to the point where their training doesn't take over. It would be a fight scenario where they absently flee. Yeah, that's a good point, Dexter, as well. Like, why aren't they fleeing? And one thing that's great is all the chat. So Mr. Writer or Mrs. Writer, when you read this, um, read those chat updates because that's one of the reasons I have it on screen. I think it's really, really critical. What are you talking about? We are talking about this screenplay, Resonance. And we will be starting a story called The Rent Stream pretty soon after. This is pretty tightly spaced. We might not do too much of this because it's pretty dense. Like, it's got a very dense font, which does not read as fast. So, yes. But essentially, like, an external, like, kind of shadow ninja lady raids the CIA headquarters and everyone panics rather than, their training kicking in and fighting, and that felt a little bit like it didn't match maybe what the reality of the situation would suggest. She quickly looks back, but there's no one there. Waitress shrugs it off. Again, that's another moment I'm not fully buying. I don't think a creep staring at me and hearing voices would be something that I would shrug off. Yeah, that's going to be a minor note, but I'll try to move a little faster because I want to get to sort of like a little bit into your first act before I switch to the other story. I want to get to page maybe 7 or 8 before I transition over. For a moment, she hurries to the waitress. Oh, we got a misspelling there. That's gonna. It's one problem with PDFs. My OCD. I'm like, ah. Anyways, let me take this one. Take this one. Scanning around until a bodybuilder wearing a skull mask grabs around. How was heaven when you left it? Gonna lose that hand. Skull says something, but Kai's not listening. Her gaze flicking through crowd again off the distance. There, heading to the back exit. I like this kind of false. I think it's the like the grab the bodybuilder. So I like but it's a false positive. I think that's a really good device. When like the character's trying to get to something and something jumps out, but it's not the real threat, and then they go back to finding the real threat. Like the cat. The stereotypical one is someone's looking through the alley and they hear the trash cans rattle and it's a cat, and you're like, oh, it's a cat, it's faked me out. That's a really, really good device. So keep that in. That's a really good use. Yeah. Do you mind reading my story, or did you already? It's not finished. I have not yet. The next story I'm reading tonight is the Rinse Stream. Is this your story? It might not be on the queue yet. I think. But if you want me to read your story, just type in edit. Feel free to send it to me over email. I do paid edits for bigger things, but if you just want like a simple, fun Twitch edit like this, just send it to me on Gmail and it goes into the queue. Because for better or for worse, there's a lot of people who want their stories edited, and there is unfortunately a little bit of a line. And life has been crazier and crazier for me, so I haven't had a chance to get to it as often as I'd like. So the queue is built up a little bit. So, but tonight we're getting through the queue and hopefully helping some of these writers with their work. Something to look at. Kai pushes through the crowd, glimpses up ahead. Someone you know, Kai? She stares outside, haunted, melting into fear. But why did she chase it? I really hope not. So I like that, but I don't know if melting into fear seems like a bit of an extreme. Into fear, implies passivity. She's been pretty proactive here. If she's that afraid, she wouldn't go toward this person. Kai, age 18, wakes up, knock, knock, knock against the wall, smiles sleepily, knock, knock, knock. Not really sure Kai's memory. So again, in screenplay notation, this will be marked as a flashback, but that's generally something. She didn't. The slam becomes 3 knocks. So generally you'll do flashback. I like that you have a little bit of a knock transition here, but again, flashbacks are really risky, right? Like we haven't really gotten well established in the current world yet. We don't have a clear sense of stakes. We don't have a clear sense of what the opposition is coming from, or why I should care about these people. Like, Kai is kind of likable, but we've only been with her for 2 pages, not even 1 page. So I really would like avoid jumping. We're jumping a little bit too often, right? Like, so we went from a teaser and this scientific thing to Kai in the present world, I imagine, to Kai in a flashback, to what we have coming up, which is Kai in a future flashback. So be really, really careful about, and then we're in the past for another page. So be really, really cautious about flashbacks. I'm not saying that you have to cut it, but beware early flashbacks. Is there any way we can communicate this info in the present? Because essentially what these flashbacks become is they're just info dumps, right? Because we know that the characters are going to survive because it's a flashback. Like, they're still alive now. Like, they made it. There's not at least high danger stakes. And unless it's something traumatic, it generally... But then it's like, why is the trauma coming up now? Because a door slammed? Does this happen to her? Does she remember this every time a door slams? So you got to be really, really careful. Though I think you did do the transition well. So I will say that. Though the transition with knocking is, a good step. So I think the transition, it's a good first step. I would still consider revising this, making it either drastically shorter or even considering cutting it all together. And let's read it and see if it maybe could be cut. Gonna need to mute a lurk. Oh yeah, no worries. Coffee Quills, have fun. Good luck catching up on stuff. And thank you for the 200 bits. That was so kind of you. Sinking into memories of fear might help direct the acting a bit better. Good shout, yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, and showing that, like, yeah, she's thinking about memories. That's a good point. Good shout. I would never have thought about that. Well, that's great. I'm glad things are helping though, and everybody who's watching, one of the best ways to develop your writing is to edit. So feel free to reach out to people on my Discord or on any Discord of writers and say, hey, let's trade edit for edit or something like that. And even if they don't do their part and you just edit their work, that's okay, because editing is one of the best things you can do for your writing. And like, this is like going to the gym, the brain gym for me too, right? Like, I'm remembering, like, oh, in my writing, I got to be careful with early flashbacks. It's all stuff we have to be aware of. I got to be careful with scene shifting. That's actually one of the challenges in my most recent novel that I'm working on, is that I have 3 point of view characters, and I go like point of view character 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3 again, and that I might have to reorder it, honestly, because of this exact issue, right? We don't settle in enough to a single character. Silent treatment. Okay, voice is small and thin. Morning. Both obviously pissed at her. Kai sits at the table. Breakfast ready, hun. Without courage, she glanced back. Kai stares out of the table for even more uncomfortable moment. I gotta get going. No response. She leaves. Afterthought. Father stares down from window. Their eyes meet. Kai apparently attempts to wave, but he moves away, leaving her alone in the air. Sad. Okay, so that sad note, you don't need it. It's already implied, right? Trust. That's a perfect example of verbal doubling, right? Like, we're developing. You did a great job setting the stage, developing that emotion, and then you tell us what we should feel. Let us figure it out. You've done a good job. Trust the good work you did. Cut the sad at the end. We already got that emotion from your description. No need to verbal double here. Okay. Kat rushes up the stairs. When she reaches the hallway, she slows her pace, trying not to make any noise. We watch through a peephole, distorted and obscured by the lens's fisheye. It's lens with S apostrophe S. Yeah, it's kind of weird, but there's not like it's not lens fisheye. Yeah. Anyways, just some small grammar stuff. I'm not gonna go into much of the grammar stuff here, mostly because the structural things matter more anyways. Honestly. Kai stops in front of the front door, but it's an apartment. Friend waiting for her penny. So this is still in the past. Okay. Okay, this really has to stop. Your father or me? So she's like, this is like someone she's a friend waiting for her, or are they romantic in some way? I'm not really sure. So yeah, I mean, like we do gather. So like this scene shows us that her parents don't like her relationship, friend or otherwise, with Penny. But why do we need to know this now? Does this need to interrupt the, creepy person action? I don't think so, right? Like this, could this be communicated through a line or two of dialogue? Maybe. I think you could, honestly, because it could be just as simple as, oh, yeah, my parents always, they never liked the girls I dated if they're in a relationship, or they never liked that I hung out with someone from the other side of the tracks. I don't know. Um, so again, the flashback. So it's think about your screenplay and all of your writing in terms of risk reward. What am I paying versus what am I getting, right? And you're paying a lot, right? Like whenever you jump into the flashback for a page, you're losing a ton of momentum. You're slowing the forward pace of the story down, and you're just confusing, like the reader has to reorient themselves, right? So you're getting all that debt, and what are you paying for it, right? You're introducing that maybe she, has a romance that her parents don't approve of. She had a bad relationship with her parents. Okay, that's not like really unique or really really important information. Um, so I don't know from my point of view if that trade-off you're making right now is worth it. Let's get to the bottom of page 7, and then I'm going to go ahead and jump to the other story. Oh my gosh, 12:17. Okay, I might have to go a little faster. Kai came back to reality. We're back in the present day. We're off in the world. You were off in your own world all night. Yeah, I'm fine. Just long night. All right, see you tomorrow. So again, there's not much conflict in the dialogue here. Like the only conflict has been action. Nobody wants anything. You know, you know. Consider adding some conflict in the dialogue. It's been a little too oriented on setting the stage. So like oops. It's not the end of the world, so that's why I said consider. Like I think it's okay because you have a lot of action, going on, but maybe she's like, well, get your act together tomorrow. And maybe it's just like one more thing for Kai to worry about. She's our hero. She needs to go under like the vice grip ringer. Let's give her a little bit more trouble. Maybe her waitress friend is being a jerk to her. Who knows? Like, well, get your crap together, Kai. I had to like take care of 2 of your tables. I had to close out 2 of your tables, you knucklehead. Like, like my My wife used to work as a waitress, and they were not so nice. If you were having a bad day, like, you had to get your act together, like, it's a tough job. So yeah, maybe that would be even more realistic in some ways. Okay, so she's still at the bar. Okay, so just say the bar. Just say bar. The same is kind of weird. Just say int bar. Is better than int same. Just confusing. Or even a more specific part of the dar. I mean, these are really lean slug lines. So like the more specific you can get with your slug lines, like is she at the bar counter? Whatever. Whatever. Be as specific as you can be with your slug lines. In Maximum Overdrive. Oh, cool. I don't know if I've watched Maximum Overdrive, but I should check it out. Maybe I should. Is it a movie or is it a book? Or I'm imagining it's a movie. A name like Maximum Overdrive. That's a movie. That's a feature. Gloom. No lights on. Stack stools. As Kai bends over to grab a stool, she spots some confetti on the ground. The confetti starts twitching. Insert cut. The woman, her hand touching the wall with her fingertips, her shadow looming. Rattle, rattle. Did she hear that, or was it her head too? Listen silent. Rattle, rattle. The back door. Kai can hear her own heart pounding. The door jiggles. Seems like it's going to fall off. Kai freezes, praying it holds. It does. Silence. Whoom! Something hits the door from the outside, scaring the crap out of Kai and us. Well, I remember, always be really, really careful about doing stuff like this, like telling the reader what they're feeling, because if they're not feeling it, it's gonna really work against. Because like in my reading, right, like for better or for worse, I've seen, this is like, I don't think you're in, I don't know, I have a feeling you're trying to play off cliches, but I think you still need to kind of research maybe a little bit more about how these other films do that, right? Because for example, like, I've seen the scene where like the door jiggles and then boof, something crazy happens, right? Like that's something I've seen quite a bit before. And so, like, I'm not feeling as much fear and tension as potentially Kai is. Like, this is happening as in real life, I'd be freaked out. But, like, it's not. It's happening in a story, and it's happening in a relatively similar way to what I've seen before. The movie's based with a different title. Oh, okay. It takes on personalities and conflict. Ooh, interesting. Maybe I will check it out then. So, yeah. She ducks into the kitchen. She gets a hold of herself. Footsteps. She runs around the bar. She reaches the but I don't know why any of this is happening to some random waitress. Like, and how this relates to the CIA. And I need to start getting the threads. I mean, I'm 10% of the way, right? Like, that's a 50-page screenplay. I'm more than that. I'm 20% of the way through your television show, your pilot, and it still is extremely like, you need to start hinting at the threads at least. Like, I have no idea how this lady connects to, whatever's going on in the CIA, right? Like, increases her anxiety. She's freaking out. Let me go. Why? Someone's waiting for you. What is this? The guy creeped her out. You're alone as anyone can be, Kate and Kinsey. It gets bad. Okay. So they're seeking they're seeking her. Okay, for some reason. But yeah, like having trouble connecting the dots here, and we're a good percent of the pilot in. I need to start seeing the threads between the teaser and the main line and the flashbacks, right? And the opposition. Yeah, there's like these things coming in to get Kai, but they're all referencing like off-screen, like, ooh, like the organization is coming for you. That's okay, but like, but then the organization needs to be consistent from that Shadow Lady coming in, to the flashback, with the parents, the organization needs to have a moment there. Any of that stuff, that it needs to start all connecting, right? You only have 50 pages. Screenplays are extremely lean. They have to be extremely structure oriented. So, be extra conscientious about that. I know it's kind of like a bit of a truism, but it can really, really punish you if you're not thinking as extremely efficiently as possible. All right, so now we're on to the next story. This is the rinse stream. And I'm excited to check it out. I might do paragraphs on this instead of page. Everyone's been sending me PDFs, so I have to have Notepad open. Yeah, I would give normally some overall notes. But I think I covered a lot. I think you do a lot of good stuff. You know what? I'm going to give overall notes real quick because I think that's important. Good. I think the action flows smoothly. It's all depicted really well. Like, the dialogue is, snappy and moves the scenes forward. The characters, the imagery and characters are cool. Like, the skull and, the shadow lady, I'm a big softie for those types of things. I'm writing a whole novel about like a shadow world right now, so I'm a total softie for that. So I love it. And it's overall, I think you did a great job on the screenplay. I can go back to that. I think you did a great job on the screenplay. The things I would improve though is really, really, give us some clarity on what's going on in the meta world and why we should care. I think one of the things so many writers struggle with is they have everything hidden away. They're like, oh, there's so much mystery and la 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 la. Like, there's secret organizations and all these things and all these weird events happening, but then they never get to like a place where I can land my feet. I just need to land on my feet somewhere. Something needs to be real. Something needs to be relatable. Something needs to be understood from page one if you can. And we didn't get that here, right? Like, we're jumping between too many things. Hard to see where the connection is, so it's hard for me to like want to continue and to keep reading. I need to have something that I can really grasp onto. Another thing to really think about is, there's some like grammar clean up, and then we should be like, consider other conflicts besides external violence. It just starts to get very one note. Can there be dialogue conflicts? Can there be, can there be an argument at the bar? Anything like that, I think can add to it. Likewise, consider trimming the flashbacks. That I know I kind of talked about that earlier, but as I read the flashbacks, I don't know if you need them. Anyways, onwards and upwards, huh? Now we can jump to the rinse theme, and I'm excited. We're going from drama to prose, so we're gonna be doing some different things here. Prose behaves very differently than drama. One of the big things that we'll be thinking about is interiority. How is a character's internal thoughts represented in a show don't tell way, right? And obviously that's a truism. There are times where it's okay to tell, but in a way that's evocative, that makes me feel and connect with what's going on. That's really, really important. So, without further ado, let's get reading. Oh yeah, let me see. Sorry. Definitely, there are so many stories where they keep the actual story in the shadows until halfway through, or later to indulge in characters. Yes, and that can come at a cost. These are all trade-offs, right? Like, there are some stories where they can get away with shadowing the plot because the characters are so interesting, right? So if you're doing something well enough, you can get away with some of these things. But remember, it's all an addition table, and every time you deduct more than you add in, you'll lose some readers, and that's kind of the equation you have to play with as a writer. Is I'm limiting my audience, but I'm going to deliver them a much more delightful experience. Maybe, maybe not, or I'm limiting my audience and maybe I'm not gaining much. And that's something to really be thoughtful of as well. Yeah, the good thing about a lot of leeway moving them, you can use them as trailers or opening hooks for future episodes. Absolutely. Especially, that's a good point, Dirty Dexter, thinking in terms of, this is a TV show. We have so much time to connect with Kai. Maybe this is something that's a teaser in a future episode, or you name it. Yeah, great point. Great point. With a gate noticeably burdened by the oppressive storm clouds glooming overhead, Juan de Tassa strode with purpose and a wry smirk. The architecture was drab, the people unwelcoming, and the air outright rancid, but he'd allow none of it to dampen his spirits. London was a fine enough city, if not a tad excessive. So I like that we're getting some of his voice. We're getting some of his voice in this thing. Getting the character's voice in the description. Like the description is set up, but it's in a way that we can hear this character saying it. Again, the language is in a high register, right? And whether or not that's intended, that comes with some of its own trade-offs, but I think that's fine for now. Unburdened by the oppressive. Yes. Yeah, it sets this character up really sharply. We kind of see him as this, running through the muck with a good spirit. And we like characters. That makes a character likable, right? If they're pushing through something with vigor, if they're conquering something, solving a problem, that makes that character much more likable, much more interesting from the get-go. The Count of Villamendia, I can't pronounce that, so I give up, hadn't sailed for so long, simply to be undetermined by unsettling smells and hostile locals, sometimes both at once. No, this was a journey of peacemaking, and such hurdles were to be expected in its line of work. Okay, so this is getting a little too telly, right? So this is giving us a little bit too much information. Like I almost want to see him deal offhandedly with a local or something. So we're getting a little bit too much. We're getting a little too much summary early on. His quest, how he deals with locals in paragraph 1. Consider, showing an encounter with a hostile local that he, manages swimmingly. Whatever. Okay. No, this was a journey of peacemaking, and such hurdles would be expected in his line of work. What man could deem him unreasonable if one held every city in the world to the standards of his wonderful Lisbon, least of which a city in such dire straits as London? So, so a line like this, he grinned and nodded each citizen that dared glance his way, knowing full well he had received no courtesies in return. This could cut so much, because this essentially accomplishes the same thing as these two pretty long sentences, or three really long sentences, right? Maybe you just say the Count of Villamendia grinned and nodded at each citizen. And that you can cut those other scenes, right? Because that's telling us that these locals, this can be very heavily compressed, I'll do para 1. Consider starting the Count grinned and, nodded at each, knowing that these, dirty Londoners knew no such courtesy, didn't possess the courtesy. Whatever. That's kind of a silly way, but this can, replace the explanatory sentences. Especially early in a story, we're trying to get from summary into scene as quickly as possible in modern writing, right? So modernism in writing is very scene oriented over summary oriented. And while summary can work, it is harder to execute. Things like David Copperfield, where like the first pages of David Copperfield are just him summarizing whatever, whatever's on his mind. I don't know. Actually, no, it's yeah, no, that's David Copperfield. It's Great Expectations where he meets the crook in the beginning. That part's interesting because that's a scene, then it gets really boring. Um, so yeah, starting with scene. Um, and in his different books, he does it in different degrees. I'm going to blow my nose. Hold on. Oh my. Okay. Each slender held one thing in common: a soulless gaze. A twinkle in one was absent. So again, we're summarizing. We're getting so many of his impressions simpering down the road. That's a nice kind of verb muddle, but it feels a little funny, but it's fine so far. There are a dozen ruddy cheeked, dirty specked laborers trudging past. No matter their lot in life, however, each slender held one thing in common: a soulless gaze. Um, Plagues were rarely enthusing circumstances. So again, while while the impressions of London from the Count's view are fun, in a short story, it might profit you to start later in the narrative, and closer to the plot hook. It's a stylistic choice, right? Like, it's your call. If you want to kind of have a more ambiance centered introduction, yeah, you might leave it more like this. But if your goal is publication and your goal is to get it placed somewhere, um, we need to have only a couple of paragraphs of setup before we start getting to a conflict or a problem. You know, the count doesn't have any stakes right now. Yeah, there's a plague going on, but apparently he seems like he's so blasé about it, we don't feel that as stakes as a reader. So if you want this to fit into a modernist frame, you'll need to bring in some stakes for the count much earlier. Yeah, I really like the prose. Yes, yes, yes. Showing his spirits being dampened with an interaction or something. Yes, totally agree. I think the prose is actually very nice. I think the way it's voiced is well done. Um, I think the writer in this email mentioned to me that one of their goals was to hopefully get it published. I don't remember exactly, but I don't remember exactly the writer's goals here. But if that's the case, a slow start like this probably will not work as well in that context. If that's a better clarification. Oh, I hear the Foxy lady. The wife has come home. I'm gonna say hello to her once she comes in. So 1 second. All right. I'm loving this. I'm realizing all sorts of things I never thought notes performance storytelling. That's great. That's great. That's why we do it. You know, I think doing edits and stuff like this is so helpful for both the writer but also for other writers to say, oh, and that's why editing is really important as a writer too, because sometimes it's much easier to notice something that maybe isn't working in someone else's writing versus your own. Because I know we're all it's hard to be objective with one's own writing. Anyways, let's keep going. But I just said hi to the Foxy lady. She's working late at the hospital, so I want to give her a big hug and said a little goodnight prayer. So she's gonna lay low. Okay. Jackdaw swooped overhead, Juan noting their telltale sound with a wan smile. Again, that kind of accidental alliteration feels. That accidental rhyming feels a little funny. The one. One? It's like lavender brown. One. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Paragraph 4. The rhyme of one and one feels a little off. Juan makes me think of lavender brown. I reread Harry Potter recently. Parting amateur sketches have been trying to pronounce their odd foreign names on the ship right over. What a different sensation it was to spy the things in person. Walking every day within dirt walls as the peasantry did, or even within the brick walls of those among the upper crust was breathing the putrid air of a city on its knees. After all, it hardly needed the previous night's warning in the rampant death. It was obvious enough after one breath, but the captain of the ship had thought it fit to explain the stench upon them. They are all the same. I do want to get a sense of the stakes. Yeah, I think that was what I was talking about before the boss came in. Sense of the story's stakes. What does Juan have to gain or lose in this situation? The plague poses a threat, but Juan dismisses it and ignores it. I mean, he's out in public, so it's hard for us to care about that stake, that risk, if the character doesn't. I actually reread a story recently about a plague-smitten city, and it was very much the center of the plot. But a lot of what they did, in that story was focus on the risk of the plague, and everyone's wearing masks, and some people are going crazy and cutting themselves and drinking the plague blood, and so there was such a focus on the plague. And so if the character talks about it, then just kind of ignores it and goes about his day, it doesn't feel like a threat, even though it might end up becoming one. She does like her Juan. Yes, I recently reread Deathly Hallows. Oh man, so good, so good. Really an amazing journey. Actually, I always encourage writers to new writers to write fan fiction, and I followed my own advice and did a Harry Potter one, just a good chapter for fun. But I think it's such a good tool for writers to develop parts of their world building, and I kind of go through my fan fiction spiel there, because a lot of writers feel guilty. A lot of writers feel guilty about writing fan fiction. I'm like, no, do it. It's so good for you to develop as a writer. The such girl would be named dirt poor due to one station. One wooden stomach was in the position of these foreigners. Whether it ended in blood or compromise, the Count knew couldn't rest it. He felt he'd exhausted all his options. Such a detestable behavior from a colony. Yeah, so this is a lot of background, right? So again, we're getting. I mean, like, and like this is like great. I'm sure this is like. I imagine it's historically accurate. I don't really know. Um, but because he's talking about the colonies and stuff like that. Page, page 2, paragraph 2. Um, this history is interesting, but again, giving exposition before establishing a conflict and a story will make the pacing extremely slow. So, right, like we don't have conflict yet. Like, I mean, he's kind of we have him being displeased with the city, but there's nothing that's really at stake. He just doesn't like it, right? Um, and we kind of are introduced to the city, and he he doesn't like it. It's all in summary too, so summary is naturally less conflict driven, right? Like we're not in a scene. There's not a play by play of action. It's kind of like, oh, this part of the city sucks and these guys are kind of gross. So that summarizing will also slow your pacing. um Likewise with remaining in summary over scene, the pacing slows a lot. Sorry, I'm a little under the weather here. But yeah, the first thing I wrote was a DC Marvel crossover, the Coach becoming hired Deadpool to distract Batman. That's great, right? And I think that type of those types of things in an existing universe can really help you practice a lot of the tools of the trade of writing, without having to go through like the intensive labor of building your own universe, which is a freaking ton of work. So yeah, like I think that's a really, really wise decision to write fan fiction, to start writing with fan fiction. Um, Many of the tenants were bushes of buds and blossoms pleasing to die. True. Bush the garden, square so ringly of yeah. The the count scowled, knowing he would have ordered them uprooted. Shook the thoughts away, offering a slight bow. Yes, the woman's fingers were clutching her partner's stick like carrot clean. I wonder if this is. Oh shoot! I forgot to mute. I'm gonna grab my allergy stuff real quick. I'll be right back. Alright, allergy stuff acquired. Should probably have not gone back to that while you were away again. A way that the scenes like this, where the story opens with the main character, is often carried by environmental conflict where the character clearly hates the place. So they met with the place hating them back. Mud splashes being hindered by their brushes. Didn't think of it before, but that's also the local culture creating an environment of intolerable pleasantness about the thing. Yeah. As you read the fan fiction, that's always a risk, but that's okay. That's a good point, right? We want to see some conflict. We want to see some stakes. Getting a sense of the stakes of the story as early as possible is really, really helpful. Okay. As you say, Your Majesty, the scribe gave the curt bow and seemed to notice one as he rose. I'd pin this one as an assassin, but that sort isn't often so forward. Assassins? What? Juan mocked offense. Why so alien to your eyes that it seem malicious? Surely I am not the first man of Spain to visit London. Mr. de Tassis, King James the First smiled, whirling from his seat, extending with a trembling hand. It looked rather akin to sausages where it burst free of their case, and the man's fingernails may have been stoppers to mighty geysers of infection. It's a great image, but yuck. It's a great image. Let me give that one. That was such a good image. Definitely, like, I cringed because of it. So great description there. Like, I don't want to touch that hand. That sounds disgusting. I also have OCD, so probably maybe I'm a more vulnerable reader. But that was a great description, man. I feel like your description is really sharp. We just need to start getting to the conflict and the action way, way sooner. So like the dialogue lines like jabbed feels a little much. Um, as the writer, I would read and research how some dialogue is managed. Yeah, you getting flashbacks from your reading your fan fiction. That's okay though. Remember, you have to remind yourself that it's part of your learning process as a writer. I mean, everybody has to write things that don't work in order to eventually get to things that do. Confused for a moment before his mouth broke into a grin. We're speaking here. I know this is irregular, but certain circumstances inclined me to stay. Um, I like the dialogue. Like the wording is, very precise and well done for these characters. But I think we need to start getting to the point. Like, I know like this is a kind of like a meeting of the mind, so there is some sparring here, but yeah, I would wonder if I still don't really know why Juan is there. Like I think you mentioned it back here somewhere. Yeah, because he like had to. Yeah. Mm, yeah, peacemaking. Yeah, because he's just there to like have peace. Yeah. Okay. So he's just a diplomat essentially. Negotiations commenced. Proceeded well and are expected to conclude within a year. What do you think, William? Perhaps 2 years. Yeah, like I wonder if we can start here, because this is when the conflict starts, right? How fast can we get to this Your Majesty moment, right? We're almost, or ways into the story. There's a lot of stuff before this, right? This is still page 3, I think. Yeah, page 3. Whoops, I'm spelling. All right. This is where some conflict starts coming in. Consider cutting a lot of stuff before this to reach this point as quickly as possible. Like even yeah, like why not just start him at the castle? Even the walk through the street, right? Like depends on your goals. Um like again, it depends on your goals what you want to keep or cut. If you want it to be more scenic, that's okay. It'll just make it a lot tougher to publish. But again, the conflict's diffused, right? So another problem here, right, is, or not problem, but like another risk is this like conflict gets diffused quickly, you know, like William gets scolded, the king apologizes, so the pace slows considerably when the conflict departs. Explanation kingdom decided. Leave us a moment. There's something that must be committed to parchment. So they having a sidebar conversation here, off the books. So again, we're kind of talking around. Like I think it's interesting to have these characters talk around the point and kind of have some banter. Um, the banter is interesting, but the subtext um is non-existent without us having a clearer sense of what Juan and the king both want out of the conversation. It starts with Juan being rightfully cautious of the king's temperament, and shouts at the king, and then him and the king, yeah, just meekly acquiesces. Yeah, and asserting his way, and the king acquiesces. Yeah. So I also think that like one thing we're missing a little bit through this conversation, kind of to your point, Dexter, is the fact that like I think the writer is really trying to push subtext, excuse me, but it's really hard to get a sense of the subtext and the conversation beneath the conversation if we don't have a sense of what their goals are. And so like this interiority, for example, where he's like, what was the king planning? Blah 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 blah. Like you're trying to set us up like there's going to be subtext and subterfuge, but he should guess. He should have a pretty good idea. I mean, he's a diplomat, right? He knows or should know have a pretty good sense of what this king has in his brain. So he should say, is he trying to get a better trade deal? Like, what's his deal? Is he trying to cozy up to me to get a better trade deal? We should have a really good, like if Juan is worth his salt as a negotiator, he should have a pretty good sense of what this king wants. I don't know where it went here. Oh, I think it's on page 4 still. Juan should have a pretty good guess and tell us. That way we can track the conversation and the subtext better. Okay. And the record, I'm not overly fond of it myself, but there are many in Parliament who are keen on our peace discussions failing. I was really a Shakespearean man, are you? So we'll just discuss normal here. Is the rescue seems productive? So I'm trying to deal with Parliament. Parliament doesn't like you, says the king. So they're both on the same side, essentially, right? Like the king's like, I want peace. Juan wants peace. Parliament doesn't. So they're them against Parliament. So I don't know why, you know, why we're spending so much time with the back and forth, like besides the fact that dialogue's fun. The dialogue is feeling a bit indulgent. We, both of the characters want the same thing, to be allies and ignore Parliament. And no one is listening. So why are we still dancing around in the convo? Yeah, right. And to that point about Juan being good as a diplomat, why would a diplomat with a hot temper be sent for sensitive negotiations? That's a great point. And yeah, that's a really good point. If this is a guy who, like, after a few snubs is starting to get pretty pissed, maybe that's not the guy to go. I mean, maybe he just had a bad experience coming through town, and maybe that's why that intro is valuable. But again, we're having to draw a lot of lines for the writer, and that's generally not a place a writer wants to find themselves in, right? Like, the writer's goal should be relatively understandable, and what we're supposed to know and infer should be pretty clear. And that's not necessarily happening here. Like, I'm still kind of waiting for the story to start, and I think overall, like, it's interesting, and it has like a good momentum, but it needs something to kind of start. It needs some uncertainty. There's not really much uncertainty except for this vague notion of an alliance that neither of them really seem to want or seem even able to get. So now I should return to the personal record keeper. Okay. He surprised me. Now I should return to the personal record keeper at your discretion, but it sounds like though I have little to say. You need your fellow nesters, yes, no matter, send for them. Let them caw, let them caw. So then they're on the same team. You have my gratitude. Okay, great. King casually paused, didn't know what else to say, so he bowed. Juan and really chided his own fingers as he forced a smile. Chided his own fingers. Yeah, so I think it's like a little overwritten. I mean, like, and this has kind of been a little bit throughout, but like, this could. Things are a little overwritten here. You know, I know this is the tone you're going for, but maybe trimming a little can help. Yeah, I feel like this story could use a little bit of a tuck. Ignoring Parliament is how you get the Magna Carta. That's true. That's true. Old James made that mistake. Yeah. Whoops. So then he leaves the castle. So like this scene essentially is an exposition scene. So that's like a kind of a thing, right? Like we're a third of the way through your story, and we just have gotten the exposition about what's going on. So that should be a really big that depending on your goal, that could be a concern, right? Like a third of the way through the story, and we've only gotten exposition is somewhat of a pacing risk. You know, how can these scenes have uncertainty and conflict? Give us that uncertainty. Give us the stakes. I think, sort of both writers. What's funny is like, um, you know, the one was all external action, in the first screenplay, and in this it's all internal, right? It's all dialogue, internal kind of social conflict. And it's sort of like I wish we could kind of marry those a little bit with like some sort of external stakes in this one, right? Like we're talking about the threat of assassins, right? Um, yeah, I need to be more present. I want to feel the pressure of these stakes on Juan. Like him personally should be freaked out by them. The dialogue, the writing and dialogue overall were awesome. Great use of tone and voice. Fun world building, and in fun world building. This is a place you've written. So that's a really big accomplishment. And I just had thought about this. Like the way you've written this world and the king and obviously there's stuff that you want to tweak and clean up, but overall the way that it's written, it's very inviting. It makes me want to read more, honestly, and sink into this like kind of royalty and these types of things. So I think that's like a really really fun opportunity, right? But I think yeah, we really really need some more conflict. We need more present stakes. Um, and yeah, I think trimming is going to be a really big thing. There is still quite a bit of extra text in this story. Consider trimming by a lot and leaning things down. I, try a 50% draft, and I think you'll be. I think the story will be greatly. Yeah, try try like a 50% draft, try a 30%. Like as a writer, you know, especially with a short story like this, which is more manageable to accomplish. Yeah, try cutting it in half. Try cutting it to 70%. How far can you cut it down and still keep the essence of the story and still keep that really fun world building and those types of things? Um, you know, I don't think it's something you have to do if you want this kind of more slower paced story. But pacing, if you're looking for publication for this story, that's gonna be a big problem, right? This is a pretty slow paced story, so it might be a little harder to find a place for it at its current level of pacing. Not saying it's impossible. There probably are some places that would jump at a story like this, um, but for a more general audience appeal, that's probably something you want to do is really, really lean it down, focus on stakes, focus on conflict. But overall, I think it's been a lot of fun. It's a really fun story. I can't wait to, I can't wait to see how you revise it and what you come up with. So I hope this is helpful. I know it's I would love to read more and but it's getting late over here, and I hope this was a really helpful at least starting point for both writers to on their revisions. And I hope yeah this helps with your revisions, and I can't wait, and feel free to send your stuff back in as you've revised it, and want more feedback, it'll go right back in the queue. So we'll be reading it here. Anyways, everybody, I'm gonna find someone for us to host because there's a good bit of folks hanging out with us tonight, so I want to make sure to share the love. Um, and then yeah, and then I might be off to bed. This was fun. I haven't done an edit in far too long. Shame on me, huh? Shame, shame, shame on me. This looks like um everybody's in Germany's writing, huh? Return of writing. Author goodness. All right. Author goddess. Sorry, I can't read. All right, so we're sending y'all over to Author Goddess. This is where you're heading. Send him a big raid hello and put a bunch of stuff in their chat. Make them feel special. Encourage them on their writing journey. And I'll see you all very soon. Take care, Dirty Dexter. Feel free to join the Discord and whatever if you want to, volunteer to edit someone's work or vice versa. So, best of luck. Have a great day.